wonder about, if your decision strategy is so bad, how do we know that it's a good decision to change it, if you've decided that it's not good? And then when they told me all the things, I said, oh, well, I see. The issue here now is not about making decisions. So what I did is I just said, that's not the outcome. The outcome is really something different, which is how to determine what the situation is leading to. It was something, I just made up something like, instead of making a decision about what to do, how to figure out what the situation was going to lead to ahead of time, so that so it's like, it's not making decisions, it's learning from mistakes or something like that. And she didn't have all the confusion, because she was obviously in all this double binds about decisions and good decisions and bad decisions. And so we just said, oh, that's not even the issue, it's learning from your mistakes. It's about learning, not decision making. Well, it was amazing, the person went right along with it. So that's another modality where you have, so another outcome is number 7 on the definition list. Another outcome involves challenging the relevancy of the belief and switching to another issue altogether. So I say, this issue isn't about past lives. This issue is about who's intelligent or not. Call it, so you jump up a level. You say, you don't try to challenge the belief itself. In fact, you say, oh, this belief actually seems to me to be irrelevant to what we're talking about. This is the issue. Actually, I was talking with somebody during the break today. We were saying, well, I have trouble getting my daughter to want to go to school. And we actually discovered that really the issue wasn't about getting her to want to go to school. It was about them communicating in general. And that's where that magic of jumping up the level and saying, wait a minute, this isn't a belief issue, this is an identity issue, or this isn't about what you're capable of, this is about what you believe. That can make life so much easier for you, so that you're not banging your head against the wall. I'll give you a real simple example. I developed this NLP spelling strategy thing that people use a lot, and it's a very powerful strategy. However, you run into the same issue here. If I teach a kid to spell a word frontwards and backwards, does that mean that they know how to spell yet? No, they just spelled a word frontwards and backwards. What do I have to do to get them to realize, oh, I'm capable of spelling? I've learned how to learn. Now, even if somebody's capable of spelling, then you get the other belief issues and identity issues. For example, I remember working with a fellow who actually has been a couple times that this comes up. One was in Atlanta with a person who was having all kinds of trouble trying to visualize the words. And what you find is it wasn't about could he visualize the words or spell. In fact, this person who was a very successful businessman but couldn't spell.
Very successful.
Yeah. What happened was he had a picture up there of his 3rd grade teacher. And it basically, the belief was something akin to, if I finally learn to spell after all these years, I'll finally be giving in to that son of a bitch that I vowed I'd never give into. That's called beliefs and identities. That's not about spelling. Remember somebody, I had him spelling frontwards and backwards, and he goes, oh, well, yes, now I know that I can spell, but I'd really rather not become a stiff and sensitive person. What does that have to do with spelling, And it turns out, again, 4th grade teacher, again, person that was his model for what a good speller was this individual who was normally a nice guy, except when it came to spelling. And then he became very rigid and insensitive to the feelings of this 4th grader, who the person was now in his 30s, but he had equated somehow that spelling must have been what made this person do that. And so here's where you get, you can bang your head against the wall for a long time trying to force somebody to violate their own personal integrity by learning to spell. Or you can go, wait a minute, let's jump a couple levels here and check identity issues. The same thing with the sleight of mouth. When you find yourself going around in circles and the person is not responding, that can also be a tip-off. There's another agenda here, and that agenda might be on a higher level. And I think that that's the place I would go with this person. I'd drop the whole issue about past lives and persecution at this point and go to identity. I remember Joe Yeager, a person that we know who's very good intuitively with sleight of mouth. He once had a person who believed that he was being persecuted. He worked in a particular warehouse, and for example, he knew that people lined up the boxes so that all the lines, there were lines on the boxes, they all pointed at him, it was very, talk about reality and things, So these lines, he knew, all the lines pointed at him, so he was being persecuted. And Joe came to him and said, I thought you were a religious person. Out of the blue. I said, I am, what are you talking about? He says, well, didn't you ever read Job? He says, yeah. He says, what does that have to do with it? He says, well, how do you know that you're not just being tested by God? Like Job was, to test your own faith. That people are doing this, and, if they're setting this up, how are you going to deal with it? How should you deal with this fact that people are persecuting you? Should you be mad at it and fight against it and angry about it? Or should you learn something from it, accept it, and go to a higher level in your own response to it? So, and it was really interesting. He said he turned out just by pacing and leading this and reframing it as being not persecution, but the person was being tested. How would God want you to react? Would he want you to be paranoid about it? Or would he want you to be forgiving and understanding about it? And he said that completely changed around this person's response. And of course, once he started responding differently to the people in his environment, they started responding more differently to him too, and set up a positively reinforcing loop. And the guy, eventually, all the problems disappeared. So, again, these levels, if one thing you can understand about sleight of mouth and human behavior is these logical levels can really make a difference. If you get stuck on one level, shift, go to another one. Good point, good issues. And I guess, again, what I would do in that situation is I'd step back, comment on the relationship itself. Say, this is what seems to me. I feel unaccepted by what you just said. Sort of. Let's also come back to that one as we introduce some of the other patterns. Any other interesting things? Yeah.
You just brought up one. It just feels so good. I'm suspicious of it.
Right.
How do you respond to that?
Well, here, of course, what you want to do is, in this case, you might want to get some of the rest of the belief statement. What would happen? What makes you suspicious? Is it that feeling good is going to cause something bad to happen? Is it that feeling good, every time I feel good, I'm fooled by it? That I can't trust my own feelings. So what I'd want to do is to first fill out the rest of the belief. What makes you suspicious about feeling good? Because they might say, well, because every time I feel good, something bad happens afterwards. Or they can say, because, what? sorry, yeah. Never mind. Second thing is, I can say, I could reframe any number of things. I could say, well, are you being suspicious or just thinking realistically about it? So if we're going to be thinking realistically about it, let's think realistically about it. If I reframe suspicion of a good feeling to, of course, that's a realistic thing to do because good feelings don't always last. They can't hide other things. But what it does is it takes it out of suspicion and starts putting it into, quote-unquote, realistic thinking, which is, well, what could happen here? What do good feelings indicate? How can I deal with that? I could also redefine good feelings. Is it good feelings that you're having as opposed to good thoughts? You have good feelings, but it sounds to me like your thoughts aren't good. Otherwise, you